Well, welcome back. Welcome back to part 2 of this full analysis of a model, and that is Molly, our model. And we are learning through Molly. What will we need in PowerPoint 2? You must have at your computer right now the completed coding sheet that you did on your own for every dimension of Molly's performance on the CRI. You jotted down notes on the sheet in the right-hand column to explain problem areas. Try to get into Molly's thinking. And so this is the form that you now have. And it's right there at your computer side. And if you don't have it, folks, we're just going to have to ask you quickly turn off this PowerPoint, go and complete the work, and then come on back. And why do you need this? I'll tell you why. Because we're going to check our work together. You're going to look at what you have, and you're going to look at what we have. And as we go through that process, we would like you to jot down notes and observations, things you missed, so that you can have a better sense of scoring the critical reading inventory. So a second reason is that will enable you to demonstrate it that you met the competency that we ensured that to the state that it's met. So you will scan that copy with all your little sloppy notes. That's okay. It's evidence of completion of self-reflection. And that's a powerful important in the standards of the International Reading Association. All right, so let's learn about Molly. And I'm going to have to pop up here to the beginning. We already completed this, but I just want you to remind you, she's 4th grade. So we have signs that her sight vocabulary and word analysis may be areas to work with. All right, what did we notice here? We noticed that she, for 3 words, made no attempt, simply said, don't know. Is she reluctant to take a chance? She did focus on initial parts, for instance, with typical. She has difficulty with blending. Let me get it up here. The BR for brave, she ignores. The other thing with the prefixes and syllabication here, I think she needs that. In other words, province is a VCV syllabication, and it's closed, and she treated it as an opened. So there are signs that she does clearly need some skills with word recognition. All right, but we're ready to move on to comprehension. And in order to do that, we're going to have to move all the way to where we began working on our own. All right, so let's talk about your coding on that sheet. Did you realize that this was an NS? It's non-scorable, okay? The substitution of and for said, that violates meaning. So in our chart, we're going to count that as a meaning violator. Move on. Here, when it said to pay for hotel rooms, Molly said room instead of rooms. Well, it's a miscue, but it maintains sense. Now, even though this was teacher provided, you should not have counted it as a score. It's non-scorable. It's a pronoun. It's a personal pronoun, rather, a person's name. Moving on, substituting what for that in the sentence. My brother Sal said, rather, my brother Sal, and he said that we would. Well, Molly said, he said what? So we had to count that as a meaning violator. And then we come over here, squawking instead of squalling, rather squalling instead of squawking is a violator. And we also have begging instead of began as a violator. So again, here I put on syllabication with attention to medial vowel signs. But here is what your summary should be. 1, meaning making. 4, violating meanings. No self-corrections. And 1, non-word. All right? So on your recording sheet where you did your summaries, those are the numbers that we really needed to have. Just note here we had an RAI of 99 and an MMI of 100. All right, when it gets to retelling here, all right, what we have here is a relatively pretty good retelling. What's totally missing, though, is there's no reference to the alligator here, right? There's even no reference that he's wrong, and he knows he's wrong. So when we come up here, we have to have a 0. He misses the alligator. That's not there. And the other thing is no personal response. But all other elements of that retelling were clearly there, in spite of the fact that a key thing, no alligator, and not realizing he's sorry. All right, we're ready now to work on the comprehension questions. When they were obviously right, I'm just going to report we gave a plus for 1, a plus for 2, and a plus for 3. Now let's look at 4. For here, the question is, what reason would Juan have for being upset when his family talked about what they had seen? Now here, the question is directed to Juan's motivation, when in reality, he's primarily rewording the question and never answers it. So what he does is rewords question, but no answer. So he doesn't give an example, a true reason, a motivation for Juan being upset, all right, when they talked about what they had seen. All right, let's move on. Notice, because he said when they talked about what they had seen, well, obviously he hadn't seen it, so he didn't see it. He got mad. Well, it already says he was upset. So I want you to be able to see that this is a rewording from question into statement. All right, I wanted to make that clear just in case there were some questions. All right, here we move on. Who do you think was older, Juan or Maria? Now, the person says Juan. You cannot give half credit, folks, even though that's an answer. But all you have to say is either Juan or Maria because it tells you. And so his response provides no support. So notice he misses key textual information. And that's an important element for Molly, rather. She misses key element. And of course, here it's a 0. Notice in order to make a critical response, you have to have some good heavy thinking. All right, let's move 6. We counted as right. Let's look at 7. 7 is an important one here, because you need to remember that questions clue to the sequence to which the question's related to. So you have to detect the part of the story triggered by the question and respond to that sequential element. So how did the family show they cared about Juan's feelings after he missed the alligator? He said they told him what they saw, but it was scared away. Now notice, this, first of all, wants to say you have to critique make a value judgment about the family. There's no value judgment here. He's just saying what they did, what they told him. So here it reflects that there's a missing of the sequence in which the question was asked. The question directs attention to their motives. His response focuses on the details. All right? Question was on their motives. His response, the details. So we have no credit here. 8 is correct. And let's hear that 8 is correct. We marked it correct, and that's pretty obvious. But now let's look at 9 here. Do you think Juan's parents were right to let him sulk? So here, what you want to do is you want to make a value judgment about the parents. So a value judgment about the parents. Now, once you see the intent of that question, now go. Is he making a value judgment? I don't know. He should have gotten over it. So he totally missed the point of the question. So we're going to give him a 0, but I'm also going to make an observation here, folks. This is what we call a Dodger response in the profiles of comprehension that we've already looked at. That takes us to 10. Now here's a very interesting case, because the question is, what lesson do you think Juan could learn from his experience? So you have to analyze all of the experience involved with Juan and come up with a lesson. His is, you can't be mad all the time. Well, keep in mind, he wasn't mad all the time. So the examiner notice says, could you expand that and explain it a little bit more? And so even though he has a kernel of a lesson, he is not able to develop it with the teacher's probe. All right, so what do? We give half credit. All right? Let me get this up a little bit higher so you can see it. So we're giving half credit there. So for a summary here, we've got 4 of the text. We've got 1 of the inferences and 0.5 for a score of 55. Now, let's notice here. What grade level is this? This is 4th grade. What grade is Molly in? Molly's in 4th grade. 55% for Molly at her grade level. With that in mind, we're going to go and look at what we did in our scoring for 4th grade silent. All right, the first thing we'll do is we'll take a look at the retelling. Here in the retelling, it's very interesting, is absolutely nothing is reported about the classmates. And they're crucial in this story also. So when we get to retelling, we only can give a half. And consequently, because there's no reference to the kids, it's the kids who put him under pressure. So again, everybody expects him. No reference to the kids. So the first time we see his retelling that matches here with the grid is his father's not going to be here. And he's going to go and do something he likes to do. Now notice here's another interesting thing. Ben's classmates are surprised with his project, and his teacher gave him a low grade. Now, you have to put half because this part's right, but that's ignored. Then, of course, he tells his father. I put this arrow here. Why? Because I want to go back here to this. So the grade wasn't really fair. Now, whether you agree with this or not, that's Molly making a critical judgment. And when she does that, she has what we call a personal response that has a deep reaction to it. All right, so comprehension questions, let's look at them. Here again, the question clues the sequence at the beginning when they looked at Ben when the announcement is made. There's no, by the way, he doesn't even done anything yet. So Molly says they were surprised to see his chart. So you see, missing the sequence of the question is a problem there. But let's look on. 2 and 3, very good. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Outstanding performance for Molly. All right, let's move here to get our summary. The only one she missed was a problem with the sequence. 3 of 4 for text, 3 of 3 inference, 3 of 3 critical response. I want you to remember something. Following oral reading, she had a score of 55%. But look at this. Silent reading, same grade level, same syntactic complexity. She has a score of 90. Do you remember when we looked at during Module 1, 80 on 3rd grade following oral, 90 following silence? Are we getting a pattern here? All right, we're ready to move on and look at our final oral reading. So, we should have no score here, folks, because it's a proper noun. We'll move on. We get down here. Winnie knew no one was nearly. She omitted the word who. I want you to notice here. This is an important one. This is very important, folks. Here we have the text saying only boys were permitted to participate. And what does she substitute? Parmite. This, I'm putting a 0 here, but it's a very big concern because she is using a non-word here. All right? That's not a good sign. That we want students to realize that reading is a meaning-making process. All right, let's move on. Here we have a teacher, and that, by the way, is a 0. Here we have an insertion, and that is a plus. All right, let's move on. Here we have a substitution of empire for emperors. That, I think, doesn't destroy the meaning. And then we come down here to decreed to discreted. Again, folks, a non-word. So we still have some sign that we've got some problems with syllabication. Let's pull our scores together here. We have 4. Yep, we have 4. That maintained meaning. All right. We have 4 that violated meaning. I'm trying to take a quick count here. We have no self-corrections, but we have 2 non-words. All right, so we're ready now to move to the retelling. And in our retelling here, we have some clear confusion about this whole story. All right? She seems to think she's entering the contest 2 times. But let's go through our scoring. Here, what she has is she has herself and her family, but there's no real reference to the emperor and what the emperor is giving as the prize. We know that about her problem is counting, so we give a plus. She hears about it plus. She wants to enter, but only boys. Yes. Now, the minute you get into that discussion about the father, it's totally gone. But she does disguise. All right? Now, here, she wins. So she got half of that, but she misses the point that the prize was the emperor's daughter in marriage. So we have a half, and there's absolutely no personal response there. So let's quickly go through our questions. 1 is correct, and 2 is correct, but 3. Here we see she never answers on the question. The focus of the question is on the father. The focus is on the father. What does she do? She's talking about the contest. So she misses the point. It's a dodger response. So this is a 0. No credit. All right, let's move on to 4. Here we see she's missing the central idea of the prize. The question calls for a judgment about the prize, and her response failed to see the problem solution structure. So here the focus is on the central theme of the prize. All right? And so she won, so she's good enough. No critique, no value judgment whatsoever. So we have to put that as a 0. 5, she's pretty good here. He should be happy to have her, and that's the truth. All right, moving to 6. What advice did Winnie's father give? Now notice the focus is on the advice. All right? All she says, it's her fault. Again, it's a dodger. She's avoiding the answer, rather the point of the question. So we're seeing a strong pattern here. Fine with 7. Let's get up for here. For 8. We have fine for 8. When we get to 9, what she does is she creates a detail that isn't even in the story. So we call this an author. She created story detail. She didn't go into a contest 2 times. Pure creation of story. And 10, here she demonstrates the failure to see the point of the prize. So it's a problem with story structure here. She should keep it and give it. So missed the point of the prize. And we have a 0. So for our summary, we have 3 of 4. We have 1 of 3 and 1 of 3. And we have a score of 50%. And that takes us to the silent reading of The Bully. And here again, she read silently, all right? And she misses a lot of details because she really seems to have a great deal of confusion about who the characters are, etc. So she has half of the characters. We gave her half credit because of so much confusion. You cannot give her full credit for understanding the key characters and setting. She has no idea about the real problem here. So she misses it. Bill's father wants him to play with that kid. What she has here, Chip makes fun of Bill's friend. He does, but she makes no reference to the role of adults, right? So you only can give her half there. Misses all of this, so it's 0, 0, 0, 0, and that gives her a retelling score of 0. So we're ready to move to the comprehension questions. Here for 2, she ignores the question. It's a dodger. It's what suggestion does Bill's father make? He wants his son to be like him, good at basketball. That is not what, so it's not the advice. So what he's doing, what she's doing is she's ignoring the question. And that's a pattern that we see. She is right for 3. Now, when it gets to 4, this is an interesting thing because we have to give this a half credit because he says they don't talk. So you have a kernel here, but it is not developed through support. All right? So a good kernel, but not developed in order to justify relationships. Or even to use it in the story, give examples when they could have talked. All right, so 5 here. With 5, this is pure back to our character mix-up. She's mixing up the characters. So there's nothing that we could say here other than character mix-up. When we move on to 6, 6 here is inaccurate speculation. So this is speculation that is inaccurate. So we have no credit. 7, here when we look at 7, what happens is she creates a story that's inaccurate. So you have an author here. This is creation of details, not in the text. That's what we call an author response. All right, so let's move to 8. We get to 8. Why did Chip and his friend walk away? This is a detail. Here again, she gives speculation that is inaccurate. So instead of recalling, she speculates with inaccuracy. So we have to give a 0. Taking us to 9. Did Bill learn more about himself or his father? Here he says he learned about himself. But notice, Molly is building on her own speculation. So she builds on speculation and then almost sounds like a politician. Okay? How we used to talk about, your friends will always be there, won't try to fight back. There's absolutely no connection to the story. No story connection. So this is a 0. And our last one here, folks, it's half. And the reason it's half is that you see the kernel come through. Kernel comes, but can't be developed, even when a teacher provides a probe. So what do we have here? We only had one text. We have 1.5 inference, and we have 0.5 critical response for a score of 30%. Clear frustration at this grade level. And fourth grade child totally frustrates at fifth grade. So, we've learned a lot about Molly, and we should feel pretty good about ourselves. But guess what? We're going to be back for Module 3. And now we're going to get into the heart of those numbers and analyze Molly's performance. Can't wait to get back with this conversation. See you real soon.